me that there are teams out there who hate being on that list. Like if they get a player who's on that list, they think it makes it harder to negotiate contracts with another player because agents will say, oh, you got that guy. Well, you're not getting me.
Dear.
And yeah, it does happen. I've been told that this does occur. And like, you'd think that teams would be upset about being on these are the worst contracts, and I'm sure they are. But I had a couple guys tell me that you also don't want to be on the best list because then people really grind in and dig against you. So it was funny. It was funny to hear that, hear that feeling. It's very obvious out there that, you know, teams are, you know, trying to hold the line and say, okay, well, if this player, like the top players are going to get what they're going to get. But it's very obvious that some of the teams are trying to say, hey, whatever percentage was signed in this contract before this cap bump, we don't want to do that. Because, for example, a percentage that might be worth, say for argument's sake, 5 or 6 million, well, that could be going up in the next couple of years to 7, 8, 9 million. And they're like, we don't want to do that. We don't want to argue percentage anymore. And the players, of course, are going to argue percentage. And the one thing I'm always reminded about, we don't talk about it very much, Kyle, is that like these players, they don't only compete on the ice, they compete in terms of contracts. Like I have several agents who say to me, especially with younger players, and I don't know a lot of the younger players yet. You know, there's obviously a little bit of a generational divide between me and a lot of them. But they say they're even more competitive than ever when it comes to their contracts. And so they don't want to sign contracts that they look back at in a year or two and say, oh, I really regret signing that. Like the one that, and we'll talk a little bit more about him and his team in a few minutes, but the one that really stood out to a lot of people recently was Dylan Sandberg, who avoided arbitration with the Jets by signing a 3-year deal. And there were a few people who said to me that don't be surprised if you see a lot of players who say, I'll do that, and hit the market again at 29 years old or in that area and see where we go, as opposed to signing a deal with term that I don't like. And look, like, I think a lot of players expect that the 2 highest salaries after this wave of signings are going to be McDavid and Kaprizov. And look, I don't think anyone's going to have issue. If the Oilers could pay McDavid $50 million, he would deserve $50 million. And Kaprizov is a great player in a great spot to hit it big. So once those players sign, I think you'll see some of those other potential top UFAs next year say, okay, now the top of the market has been set. It's easier for me to find the sweet spot or the comfortable place with the team to go after those 2 guys are done. We'll see if it turns out that way, but that's kind of what people are expecting. You know, I think with some of the RFAs, it's the same deal. You know, I get Devils fans asking me all the time, what's going on with Luke Hughes? What's going on with Luke Hughes? The Canadiens fans are wondering about Lane Hutson. I just think that with the cap going up, the market is getting reset. I don't see problems getting these guys signed, but I do see the sweet spot for both team and player being a challenge. Everybody just trying to figure out where that is. Like, you know, Lane Hutson, I'm sure initially, you know, the Canadiens probably wanted him to be under Nick Suzuki. And now you look at the deal Noah Dobson just signed. Well, if Lane Hutson's going to sign for term, it's probably going to be up closer to Noah Dobson. And so what's the sweet spot? I just think that we're going through this whole contract reset and we're still just figuring out exactly where all of this is going to land. But I definitely feel that the teams and the players aren't 100% comfortable yet to say this is where we're going. I think they're still figuring it out, and I think that's why you're still seeing some of these biggest deals not yet signed.
It's kind of like when you see the housing market spike in some areas, you know, like a home sold, and then 3 months later, a similar one a few blocks over is now selling for 30% more. And it's like, wait a sec, how did that happen? And the price, and then it just over time in a short period, boom, boom, boom. What would be considered a similar type of home is now over the course of a year or 2 years, just thinking of what the salary cap jumping up as high as it is over the next little bit. I'm sure that's what players are trying to avoid. Those that would be considered in a similar realm in terms of percentage of the cap, depending on when your contract comes due.
100%. And like I told you, if you're a player, you hate being on, or you're an agent, you hate being on that list of, oh, these are the best deals. Like,
right. That's right.
It's like I'm not knocking the list. I mean, hey, it's content, but I heard that there's not a lot of players or agents who really are thrilled when their name is on that list,
because they look at that as a loss.
Yep.
It is a big game of winning and losing. You're right. You are right. So, anything else on that front?
You know what? I wanted to talk about the Jets for a second. They got Velarde done and they got Sandberg done, and they're still waiting on Lowry and they're still waiting on Connor. You know, I think the other thing I should mention here is, you know, the new CBA kicks in September 15th of next year, 2026. There has been some talk about when some of the new rules are going to kick in. Like, for example, at the announcement between the league and the Players Association that they'd agreed in principle on the new deal, they'd said that there was the possibility that some of the new draft rules in terms of how long teams keep players they draft could come in next season before the actual CBA kicks in. Apparently the league and the Players Association have been talking about some of the other things too. And I would be surprised, like, if things like the term limits or the changes in bonuses come in early. But it's been talked about. I would be surprised if the players would agree to that. But at the very least, it's been discussed. Like this Jackson Blake deal that just got done, it's got deferred money. That's going away. They did that with Seth Jarvis. They did that with Jacob Slavin. That's going away. It's supposed to go away September 15th, 2026. Is there any chance it comes in earlier? Like I said, it's been discussed, but if I was one of the players, I would say, why would we bring it in any earlier than we could? You know, as I mentioned with the Jets, you know, the Sandberg one is really interesting. First of all, someone I know saw, I guess, Kevin Cheveldayoff late night negotiating in the lobby of the hotel that they stay at for arbitration, and said, you know, he said he saw them late Tuesday night and it was done early Wednesday morning. So I think that was the only one of all the cases this year where the team and the agent actually went to Toronto for the hearing. I don't think any other one, like even the Nick Robertson one, which was settled Saturday, I don't think everybody traveled to get there. So that was the only one, and that's how close it got. You know, I thought that one was really interesting because I had a gentleman's bet with an executive in the NHL that Sandberg wouldn't go over $6 million AAV, and he's just under. But the point I made, so I lost the bet, but the thing I told him is that for the 2 UFA years of the deal, he's at 6.5. You know, the RFA year is 4 and a bit, but Dylan said, and that's one, like, that goes back to what we were just talking about, is that this is a player, he had 20 points last year. I think 75% of them were even strength. He had 20 points last year, but he's a really good player. And there aren't a lot of defensemen like him. And if he keeps going, there's no doubt in my mind he could be a $7 million player or more. And I think that's a perfect example of what we're dealing with here. If it's so hard for the Jets and the player to find